2004 presents Ice Station Impossible.
I'm Gary Butterfield.
I'm Cole Ross.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And welcome to another episode of Orb.
It's fantastic, kind of.
Jeremy.
Welcome.
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
I talk to you all the time.
I know.
Special.
Thank you for having me. This is yet another Duckfeed podcast that I have infected with my personality. So thank you for allowing me to do so.
Yeah.
We're on stage 3 of Jeremy Infestation. Orb. Why this episode, Jeremy?
It was the one that you said I could be on when I presented you with my 3 options.
Okay, a little bit more specific.
I've always loved this episode a whole lot, just because of the this was the most direct. I think when I finally started watching the Venture Brothers for the first time, the most direct superhero thing, right? Like as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I see what we're doing now. Like, let's do this, let's get into it. And Stephen Colbert was there, which I was like blown away that he was doing voice acting like this. Because I came to the Venture Brothers relatively late. I saw the pilot, very specifically like the scene where Brock pees on the mummy and says that you have to defile it to prevent it from coming back to life, and then thought I just hallucinated it for years because I could never find it ever again. And I was like, it kind of sounds like that Venture Brothers show, but I go back to the first episode and I can never see this scene, not realizing that there was a totally different pilot.
Yeah.
So one day, me and Autumn finally decided to watch the Venture Brothers, and we finally saw the pilot. But yeah, so this was the first episode that I just like really, really got into. That I loved all of the little side characters. I loved the Race Bannon stuff. I thought was really, really clever and fun. There's a moment very early on when one of the Snake Man goes, "You suck," and I just that's the funniest shit ever. So yeah, like when I looked at season 1, and I think there's probably better episodes this season. I think this is just a really fun episode to talk about, though.
Yeah, this one's really up there. Like, imagine the 1-2 punch. Like I mentioned in the last episode, how the beginning started with all that dialogue from a David Bowie song, and then this episode is just Marvel stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then we roll from this into Midlife Chrysalis to get that good Cronenberg stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, what a stretch of stuff. The reason why, for people who maybe don't know, the reason why Jeremy might be more drawn to this Marvel stuff is because me and Jeremy do a Marvel podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
Called Days of Future Cast, where we talk about X-Men comics.
We do. Very little Fantastic Four overlap in that podcast so far.
The X-Men have not shown up in the Venture Brothers yet.
I'm rapidly just flipping through every single episode to think if like a Wolverine. No, they never had a Wolverine. No mutants or anything. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Weird.
No, they're just not big fans.
They do have a great Spider-Man, though. So
they do have a very good Spider-Man. Looking forward to that as well. Let's get into it.
Let's do. Yeah, so this originally aired on September 18th of 2004, and this is a Jackson Public joint, written and directed by Public.
Mm-hmm. And this is a lot of firsts, or basically firsts. We had seen Pete White and Billy Quizboy in the pilot, as well as Richard Impossible, but now they are named and they have characteristics and personalities and such, and they will be important to the backstory and forward story.
Yes.
Of the show. Pete White and Billy Quizboy are kind of in the extended Venture family.
Mm-hmm. I love them so much. Like these two weirdos are so great. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible stuff. Some of my favorites. Pete White's voice, that Doc Hammer voice, is one of my favorite things. It's just really good.
The delivery on fella every time he says that, like he's like, I don't know, fella, come here. This kills me. It just kills me every time.
Good. So good. This is also the first episode, or one of the first episodes. I feel like they'd made mention before of this, but where there is a Johnny Quest character in this that is not an XB.
Right.
at all. This is because when they were making the episode, they wanted to have a Race Bannon type character, and then realized, hey, Cartoon Network owns Race Bannon. Later, this would become a problem when they try to use Johnny Quest. They're like, no, you can't do that. So it's weird. We have Race Bannon is actually Race Bannon, who was the Brock Sampson of Johnny Quest. But we have Action Johnny instead of Johnny Quest.
And like the line that they drew is super strange because they like, okay, you can kill Race Bannon and you can call him by that name, at least for now. Later when Race would show up, they would call him Red. But you can kill Race Bannon, but if you try and make Johnny Quest into a junkie, we're not going to let you do that because that goes against like the licensing agreements.
Yeah. Makes sense because, I guess kids are still looking up to Johnny Quest.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Like I have very little connection to Johnny Quest other than just like knowing that he's a thing.
Weird flex.
Like it's hey, look, it's 2020. I'll take what I can get. You know what I'm saying? But like, do you think that time, like in 2004, people were still like enthusiastic about Johnny Quest?
I think the Cartoon Network executives were being idiots.
Yeah. So like some production details about this. This is an episode that didn't have a commentary, but in the art book, Public talks about how this was basically just like an effortless episode. 90% of it came together when he was putting together Home Insecurity, and a couple things, a couple of concepts. Like he had the idea for an episode called The Island of Dr. Impossible, but it was going to be like a Dr. Moreau kind of thing. The Fantastic Four parody kind of just came in, and he just used it because it presented itself as an opportunity. It was just an idea that mixed well with that.
Yeah. I think that effortlessness comes through.
Yeah.
In the episode, like this is a smooth episode.
I ended up watching it twice today because I watched it on Hulu, and Hulu does the annoying like we're gonna play the next episode immediately, so I didn't get the post credit stinger. So I was like, well, fuck it, I have a downloaded copy. It's just mislabeled somehow, so I'll just watch it again. So I ended up watching it twice today, and it was no effort on my part whatsoever.
Yes. It's highly sleevable.
It's sleevable, as a matter of fact.
Don't bring that to this show. Come on, that's my thing. I'm gonna take a stand against sleeving.
Wow. That's Cole's new catchphrase. Don't bring that to this show.
Not in my
Imagine
house.
him wagging his finger and like talking to the hand and whatever.
This feels like a good time to bring out one of my catchphrases, which is "Get out of here, girls! You just need to get out of here."
This is gonna become the catchphrase. The podcast. The series where we have lots of catchphrases. The other reason why they did this episode is because they originally they're like, we have to do all the Johnny Quest stuff, which means like Egypt level, a jungle level, an Arctic level, etc. And this was just them shoehorning an Arctic level. We never really get a reason why this is taking place in the Arctic other than like isolation.
Yeah.
But it's just to give it an exotic location and do some jokes. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. Professor Richard Impossible has a lab at the North Pole where he does, mostly super science, but, it's pretty questionable.
It just seems like an elaborate setting for a second family. Like that's what all this is. Like he's got his girlfriend in the city. He's got his girlfriend in the port. He's got his girlriend at the pole. That's all I'm saying.
The girl at every pole. Two of them. We start off with a cold open here with Race Bannon. As we mentioned, he's on an airplane. He's fighting agents of Sphinx, but this is kind of proto-Sphinx.
Yes.
I think this is supposed to be, they're basically Cobra from G.I. Joe before they ended up using an XP for that. To get this canister of serum, this toxin that belonged to Nat King Cobra.
Such a good name. So
very good name. Very good name. And does his one-liner. Jumps out of the plane, but unfortunately, the plane crashes and he's clipped by the wing of the plane and
just
dies.
Falling in the foreground in the wind. It's so good.
It's punishment for being so into his own one-liner. Like when he lights the cigarette and pulls the ripcord on the parachute, and he's like, "Blast! You did it, Race. Good job."
Blast. Very good.
This is where the agent who's dying says, "You suck." Like, God. Like kids playing tag or dodgeball or something.
Very good.
But the plane crashes near the Venture compound. It goes down as Brock is hosing down the Dodge, and a canister, the canister that that Race was trying to get a hold of, just like falls from the sky like a missile and just wangs Hank in the head.
Yeah, just absolutely beans him. And then the plane crashes. I love the casualness with which the guy who's on fire comes up and Brock backhands him, and then puts him out in one motion. That's incredibly good. And then Race is dead on the street, and that's the end of our cold open. The introduction to our B plot.
Right.
There.
Yeah. As usual, when I was making the notes, I did a little bit of deinterlacing on these, so there's going to be less cutting back and forth as we go. So do not be surprised if everything is not presented in complete sequence. When the episode proper starts, we go to the Impossible base. We've got Pete White, Billy Quizboy, and Rusty filling out like W-9s like around a conference table. They're here to be part of a think tank. They've been invited by Professor Impossible, who used to teach them in college, at least Rusty and White. Used to teach them. He was a professor, but it's a think tank that's like a joint joint venture between Impossible Industries and the U.S. government.
Yeah. And he it's kind of showing they used to all go to college together and that they were shitty students.
Yes.
Rusty did not flunk. He got a sympathy D because his dad died that semester. Nice little urban legend kind of thing here. I love Pete White asking Billy Quizboy what his soch is. Like that kind of like longtime companion, kind of, what's my soch? The Pete White and Billy Quizboy kind of reminded me of Oh Hello. Like the Nick Kroll, John Mulaney.
Oh, okay.
Like old guys.
Yeah.
Because Pete White kind of talks like them and just like, what's my soch? Like, that's a very funny thing to me.
Where did I put my keys? It's like a very old married couple situation.
Totally.
And that, like, it's really funny that they, like, in the first line, they completely nail the relationship between the two of them.
Yeah.
Like you understand like their characterization right away when he asked that question. It's so good.
Incredibly good.
Yeah. What's my soch? And then we get Professor Impossible. We saw him in the pilot rather. And he comes in here. He's all stretchy and stuff, and he's voiced by Stephen Colbert. Which feels weird now, but like Colbert did voices on like Harvey Birdman and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like he collaborated with like Robert Smigel and stuff like that. It's weird to think of like a pre-Daily Show Stephen Colbert, but he was like alt comedy at the time, kind of.
Yeah. And there was some controversy about this. He did the voice in the first season and then did not come back, and there was some drama around it, where his agent sent it back to Jackson and Doc. Mr. Colbert has neither the time nor the interest to participate in your project or something.
Oh, jeez.
And it turned out that was overblown. Eventually, Bill Hader would come in and do the voice.
Yeah.
But I guess it turned out that was the agent, not Stephen Colbert, and it's all water under the bridge now. But at the time, I remember that being, kind of. And obviously, this is Mr. Fantastic.
Yes,
Reed Richards.
Obviously.
Yeah. Super stretchy. He's like in to underline it, Doc says like, oh, he thinks he's so fantastic. Whenever he says impossible, there's this little music sting, like March of Industry music. Yeah, it's really good.
Dude, I love it so much.
And he's super arrogant. Like this is, he's a foil for Dr. Venture, because Doc, as the thing I'm realizing in this rewatch and trying to pay more attention to the characters is like, Doc Venture is like primary character driver and fatal flaw is pride in this, and that's what he's doing. Like when Pete White and Billy Quizboy suck up to him, he's like, oh, you got something brown on your nose, implying that he's snarfling around his asshole, brown nosing as it is, which is a really ghastly phrase. When you think about it, I never really thought about what that implies, but it's pretty horrible.
Never been too comfortable saying that once I realized what it meant.
Yeah, it's really gross.
Yeah.
It's real nasty, man. No, don't say brown nose. Not my catchphrase.
Don't bring that to this show.
I didn't realize I was podcasting with my grandma today. God damn.
It's nasty, dude. Yeah. Like, it's nasty. Sticking your nose in it? Tongue,
Gary turned 40, doesn't want to eat ass anymore. What the hell?
No, you eat it. You don't sniff it.
Yeah, well, yeah. And also, it's
on,
clean. Man. Come on. We live in a society. Come on.
Yeah, it's sterile when it comes out of the body.
How do you know they're not just talking about the self tanner? Okay, you don't know. You don't have no idea.
I imagine Professor Impossible probably tans his asshole.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he's basically teaching about their suits. These are based on the unstable molecules that the Fantastic Four invented, which is why everyone in the Marvel Universe, even though they transform, their suits don't. They just go back into costume automatically.
Yeah, but the Hulk can't afford a shirt or pants that are made of the stuff. So
yeah, the Hulk is and also it's part of his image.
Well, true. Yeah.
But these impossible suits that recycle their dead skin cells are impossibly comfortable.
Mm-hmm. And like even Rusty has to admit it does feel really good.
Yeah. They talk about going to the bathroom, and they're like, you just have to think about doing it. And this is so fucking weird. Like, you think about going to the bathroom, and the suit opens this little porthole.
Yeah.
And I can't believe Rusty is fucking raw dogging the impossible suit. And I thought he was lying to get out of the urine test, but he's actually doing it. Like, later he's naked.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Rusty? It's fucking gross, man. The suit's on low.
I would totally raw dog those unstable molecule suits, man. I got to tell you,
the whole
point is that their whole point is they're supposed to like conform to my body. Like if I'm going to stretch out my penis, I don't want to rip up my Calvin Klein's.
I suppose like if I was Mr. Fantastic. I wouldn't wear underwear.
If I come in and I already resent this person for taking pity on me and giving me a sinecure to think tank, I am going to assert my agency however I can. And sometimes that means putting their unstable molecules, next to my private
on your
name.
unstable manicule. Yeah. I would not. Yeah. I like wearing underwear when I wear pants. When I wear pants, so that's the important caveat there. But he's doing it to get out of doing a piss test for this job.
Yeah, because of course he's got the mommy's little helpers. He's got those Valiums, which he insists he has a prescription for, but we saw how he gets them in D.A. Is Dangerous. Yeah. Not exactly above board. Rusty has a plan though. He's got some bags of urine taped to his leg from the boys. And of course, Bad Dad Rusty says, finally, the boys are useful for something.
Yeah, dark.
I'm going to guess I'm the only person on the podcast that's actually done this. Tried to use somebody else's urine for a urine test?
I was going to bring that up. I've provided urine.
Ooh. Okay, so
for someone else.
Copacetic, my man.
Yeah, you and I we're a match made in heaven.
We got a little economy going on, don't we?
This is finally my Misconnections article pays off.
I sell Jeremy the weed. Yeah. Hey guys, we've been passing the same $100 around for about 5 years now.
Listen, you have to move all three of us across a river, and two of us can go on the raft at once. No, I did this for a roommate. I peed in a baggie and gave it to him to tape to his leg. And I remember like troubleshooting it for him because I was a little nerd. And I was like, is it going to get cold? He's like, no, dude, I'm going to glue it right to my inner thigh. It's going to stay warm from my body temperature. Because I thought for some reason they would check the temp.
Yeah.
Because they do. Or they were supposed to. But 18-year-old Jeremy tied it to his leg or whatever. But also on the way to the drug testing place, put it on the dash of my car and turn the heater way up.
Okay.
Just to keep that temp going.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, did it work?
I don't remember. I think I got the job and then quit like a day later because I was 18. So if I cared.
Yeah. I've never done this. I don't know. I'm not above it. It's just it's never come up.
We're reading between the lines. We understand.
Okay. No,
we get it.
We're the fucking Morlocks. You're the Eloi. We get it.
Okay. Yeah.
The clean piss. Back in the day when clean piss was a thing. Mm-hmm. Do you guys remember all like the urban legends or like the products they would sell you to clean your piss?
Oh yeah, available at the head shops and stuff. Yeah.
Dude, you can go on Amazon right now and go get that same kind of shit. I mean, no lie.
It's so weird.
I had a buddy who that dude has passed up relationships with girls out of his league because they were like, well, we could hang out, but you're gonna have to like not smoke weed all the time. And he's like, nah, I'm good. I'll just be single and smoke weed. And he was like, no, I got to get this. I got to go. And he was doing cleansers and weird shit and just doing anything to get the toxicity out of his system, and it didn't work because he smoked weed for like 4 years straight.
Doing anything aside from like not smoking weed for a month.
Well, he did
Yeah.
quit smoking weed during
Okay.
this process,
Okay,
but
okay.
he was still also trying to do all the other stuff as well,
Yeah.
and then
It-
didn't
it
get the
shows-
job and immediately started smoking weed all the time.
Well, of
again,
course,
so.
because if you don't get in an
Yeah.
accident, you're fine.
It really feels like a thing where the understanding of weed toxicity in urine is just like if you dilute it enough, you won't taste it. You know, back in the day, or like
sure.
it's like a salty soup is how we used to think of it. And like that's how weed is in our urine. It's just like there's little parts of weed, and if we put enough urine in there, like it was really strange. Like I knew there was science that I didn't understand going on with urine testing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how quaint. Now you know that weed is like legal in like 2/3 of the states or whatever.
But like
this is-
employers can still can still filter you out at the test by testing you. Like just because
That's true.
it's not prosecuted doesn't mean companies don't have policies.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah. Dumb. There are jobs where you should have to be stoned to do them. Like if you're making my pizza, I want you to be stoned.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that like
It should be
I don't
the
want you to have to do that
reward.
sober.
Yeah, you get to do this. You're going to do this, but
Yeah.
you also get to be high while you're doing it, and that's like, hey, that's like a little cherry on. It's a spiff.
I don't want
It's a
this.
spliff spiff, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a lanyap. Can you imagine working at a convenience store while not high? Like why would you put somebody through that?
Yeah, no, it seems inhumane. Like you wouldn't
Yeah.
want to force them, but like, hey, cope with this however you can because this is alienating
Totally.
enough already. Yeah.
Yeah. But he spills it, of course, and he tries to scoop it up off the ground and cannot get
super
the
gross.
urine. Yeah, pretty nasty. So we go back to the B plot.
Yes, we go back to Helper bandaging up Hank's head. Hank would not have a head anymore if this actually happened. But it is funny that he is up and around while Brock and Dean are investigating the crashed plane. I'm glad the art book called this out because Dean delivers a Hank line. Dean's in full sleuth mode, and he goes up to the cockpit and says, "No wonder this plane crashed. It was being piloted by skeletons because the pilots
that's real
burned up
good.
on impact."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dean
That's
is kind of an
super good.
idiot in this episode, which is because the stuff that I've seen most recently is all the latter season stuff where he's has had a really huge character evolution. So like going back to this where he's like the skeletons and like, you know, oh my God, we're all gonna die. Like all that kind of stuff was really kind of weird.
Well, but Hank is Hank.
Yes.
So, like he's been hankening slowly over these last couple episodes, and this one he's total Hank.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I realized during this episode, so like they go to change into spy clothes to go help with a search because Brock finds Race's ID, and him just like just role playing it. It made me think of Charlie and It's Always Sunny.
Yeah,
Like,
where he becomes
how he-
Serpico.
Yeah, he just becomes anything that the plot calls for, like including costume.
Uh-huh.
You know, like that's a real Hank move.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, and him just like pretending to be above it all and really worldly, you know, during the scene where they're checking out the body. That is very Hank.
Talking to Brock and saying, "Yeah, I know. You see enough death,
Yeah.
and you get hard to it."
Yeah. You know, it's just like, what are you talking about? I love Dean dressed up as a cowboy. That's also very dumb.
Yes.
You know, for smart Dean.
I didn't have spy clothes, so I thought, "What's the next best thing? Cowboy."
Yeah. Cowboys.
I love how I think it's later in the season where they go on the date with the two goth girls, and they have to like really convince this is the opposite of this where Hank they have to really convince Hank not to wear the Batman suit to the date, and I just these boys in their costume changes just give me life. I love them so much.
It's real good. It makes me want to wear more costumes.
Oh, yeah.
Because I basically don't now, and it's a real bummer. That's not
I
true.
mean, do podcast and weird hip hop T-shirts count as costumes? Because if so, I got this shit on lock.
I love this. The kids playing with the body.
It's so good.
Because they do the music, and this is, you know, to show that it's like innocent toddler time. But it's really well observed. I feel like of them just being like, "Ooh," some vocal children.
They pull in the bit of the wind grabbing the parachute on the dead body and dragging it across. They pull that in from Lord of the Flies, but the kids ride him like a sled, and it's amazing.
Yeah, really, really good. And then like playing with these James Bond gadgets.
The knife boots,
Like,
the
super
acid
fun.
shooting pen.
This whole like this Peanuts tune too that is happening in the background. That it's such an earworm for me. Like I remember, like this is one of the things that I can just pop in my head at any time. And they use this throughout the series. Like there's times where they'll go back to this tune, and it always makes me happy.
Yeah.
Real good.
Little late motifs. But Brock, he's followed the trail. He's outraged that these snake men killed Race Bannon because he looked up to Race. Used to went on a couple of missions with him. He was a legend. He's grieving, and this is where Hank does the whole you get hard to death or whatever. But Race isn't dead yet. He sputters and wakes up and says, "Hey, are you Brock? Is that you? You look nice." And then he says Goliath serum and hands him a film strip. He needs to understand.
A film strip. it's so great. And his last words are, tell Johnny I love him. And he dies and shits his pants. And it's really graphic. And all the kids freak out about that. I love Dean coming up behind Brock. He's like, "Do you need a hug, Brock?" It's here if you need it. It's very sweet. We cut back to the Impossible family. They hand over their samples, and then Sally Impossible shows up for Sue Storm, Mrs. Impossible. This is also based on the early Fantastic Four, the early Fantastic Four comics, because that's considered to be one of the good golden age Marvel comics. So I've read the first 10 or 20 Fantastic Four comics. Spoiler, they're not actually good. They're pretty hard to read.
Yeah.
But it is kind of amusing how just ridiculously sexist Reed is. There's a lot of Invisible Girl, you go bring snacks. And shit like that. So this kind of men are doing science stuff is very true to the 60s Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
And then later that relationship would get kind of flipped on its head.
Yeah.
And Sue Storm is considered incredibly competent and powerful.
Yeah, but here, it's really dark and abusive. Actually, he's like, "Oh, you need to stay in your room." He gets really stern. He talks to her in a really kind of scary way compared to the way he talks to everybody else.
Yeah.
While still kind of having that gloss on him, the
Pete White going,
hero.
You're keeping your wife locked up in a room there, fella?
Stays in a room, fella? It's real good.
But Richard, he says, "Oh, she has a medical condition. She needs to stay out of the sun, even though there's no sun on the base." He's obviously lying about this. He's not really thought of a cover story.
Yeah. Yep. Which seems like the kind of thing he would do.
Yeah.
So this is obviously a lie, covering up a dark secret, which we'll find out soon.
Yeah.
Later, Rusty is doing some notes, just kind of making some science notes. And Richard pops in to see, hey, let me take a look at your work. I am a scientist after all. And he's, if Rusty is reluctant because it's bullshit. He's not as good as super science.
No.
But he says, I need that urine sample. When Sally pops up and tries to seduce him with a vial of her urine, is that your urine sample? No, it's your urine sample. Later, the sample flirting, later when she hallucinates and there's more sample flirting is so fucking good and weird.
It's so wild and weird.
Yeah, I love it. So much.
But yeah, she produces the vial of the urine and pops out her flask. She's sweet on Rusty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's sweet on not Professor Impossible.
Yes.
That's the
that is more accurate.
Super well observed too. This idea of girls' night out. No, I just can't remember the last time I laughed like this. Richard never allows anything like that. That just feels very cooped up housewife.
Yeah.
To be in a real way. And Rusty's drunk and is hitting on her. And when he kisses her, her skin turns invisible. Because the Mrs. Fantastic, Sue Storm, can turn entirely invisible and then also cause force fields in your lungs, which give you embolisms and kill you and shit. But the shitty version of this is that she can just turn her skin invisible. That's fucking horrifying.
Yeah, a little bit.
Extremely horrifying.
It's not just that she can turn her skin invisible, it's that her skin is always invisible unless she's concentrating on it being opaque, right? So she
can turn her skin visible.
Yes.
Yeah, which I can do too.
That's effortless. That's funny. Oh, she becomes the visible woman? The visible man? The muscle, figure thing?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And this is the whole cascade of them seeing him seeing the rest of the Fantastic Four, who did not do as well as Richard did.
Right.
He runs into a room and there's a pod, which he bumps into, which opens it, and Cody is inside, obviously Johnny Storm, and immediately lights on fire and starts screaming because being on fire hurts.
Yeah.
And then comes out Ned, who is an analog for the Thing, who puts him back in the chamber, and they touch hands through the glass.
Yeah, it's very
briefly.
sweet. Yeah,
It's very sweet.
This specific section is where Johnny Storm or Cody actually just coming out of the glass tube and immediately catching on fire and screaming. When I was like, okay, this is my humor. Like, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
This is what I want to see. Like, I want to see weird ass shit like this. And yeah.
It's so much. I mean, we have to address a little bit the elephant in the room where Ned is coded as mentally deficient, and they throw the R slur around in this episode. The way that, so the whole idea behind these guys is what if the Fantastic Four sucked?
Yes.
And they're trying to think of how to make them suck. So what if you couldn't turn invisible, but you could just turn your skin invisible? What if, you could set yourself on fire, but it hurt because you're on fire? With Ned, it feels like the rubric I put this through to not have it bother me so much, even though I do think that it's shitty. And eventually they would stop, using Ned quite as often and stuff, is to think of it, instead of thinking of him as literally mentally disabled, think of it as Hulk speak. The thing is a big, strong guy. If you just think of him as the Hulk is just Hulk smash. He's also an idiot. The Hulk isn't smart. I think that's what they were going for. They just used the terminology for it that is ruder and shittier.
Yeah, that is outmoded and hurtful. Yeah, I can see that, because his his condition is not actually is for a joke, really. There's one joke later on that is super not great, but it is not presented as if the joke is, oh, look at this, what if a person who was intellectually disabled had a had superpowers. It just kind of feels, it's a little bit like making the guy that Brock killed deaf. Yeah.
It feels and again, I'm not trying to excuse it. It's not great. And later they'll do some other jokes about it that are also not great.
Yes.
We talked a lot about how Jackson and Doc grow as they write the show. But I think when I squint my eyes, because I see a lot of myself in these creators, I can see what they're going for. And I think it's a Hulk thing.
Yeah.
That's the best will I can give it. It's up to anybody watching it whether that works for them. Though.
Yeah, whether applying that filter can make it easier to get through the times when it is not as bad. We didn't say this, so he's Ned is modeled after the Thing, except he doesn't have stone skin, and obviously the Thing gets the shortest end of the stick at the Fantastic Four. Instead of having instead of needing to get his rocks off, he's got calluses everywhere, and it hurts. All of his skin is thick and painful, so he is constantly in pain. In addition to needing to navigate the strange circumstance that he has living in this weird base and stuff like that.
I'm super glad these guys kind of grew as with with just respectability, basically, I guess, because it's very strange going back to this, and I remember finally watching It's Always Sunny for the first time and going back to those early seasons where the
transphobia in the early
it's ridiculous, man. It's crazy.
It's Always Sunny it was really rough.
And it shit, and something a show that people put up all the time as one of the best comedies of all time, 30 Rock. There was some real weird stuff about if you go back to those early seasons, even they're doing it in 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
It's really egregious. It really sticks out on a rewatch as just kind of awkward and bad. And it feels weird that because I can't remember the name now. Crap, you even have it in the notes, but I can't remember. Ned and
Cody.
Ned, they're actually related. Sally is his sister, and she's the one using the R slur on it, which feels as a dude with an autistic brother, it feels really fucking weird. So
that is poorly observed. The person related to them probably would not be using that term because it's hurtful. Yeah.
Well, and then later they'll draw a line under that, where they'll be that's a no word. They talk about how they don't use that word.
Exactly. I'm glad the show continues to grow, and it's not just stuck in this. So.
It is. I know we say this a lot. It's easy to underestimate how much this stuff was in the water at the time. I'm glad you brought up It's Always Sunny, because It's Always Sunny started off with that stuff, and then later became an actually really good show with how they handled Mac coming out.
Yeah.
I feel like they had that season, I think it's like season 12 finale
With the
where he
dance?
does the
Yeah.
dance. Yeah, that's like incredible. Like there's almost no jokes in it. It's just like this very beautiful scene about acceptance.
Yeah.
Like it's really weird that show can contain that.
Yeah.
And then his friends being supportive of him, just being sick of him hiding it, was like a move that I really liked in that show.
Yeah.
The build up to that coming out of them just all being very fucking sick of it was
Yeah.
very hilarious to me.
We just, it's really super funny.
Yeah.
Something that is my opinion, again, it's up to, especially people who are hurt by this stuff, they can choose what they choose to accept. But for me, I want to live in a world where people can grow.
Yeah.
Like you're allowed, because again, like I was this kid, right? Like when I
totally.
was, 22 or 24 or whatever, I would have made the same shitty jokes.
Yep.
It was 2002, 2003. Like it was the water. It was the air we were breathing. This was literally what people did.
Yeah.
And if you look at any Flash
20-year Jeremy
cartoon,
Stick was dead baby jokes and child molestation jokes. Right?
Totally.
Like, I mean, yeah, like it was that.
Totally.
Like, I mean, I'm not proud of that, but like, and I definitely don't do that shit nowadays.
Yeah.
I haven't for fucking years, but, and this doesn't, and that's not excusing that behavior. Like that was
No,
still
no.
super dumb at the time. Like nobody was laughing at that. You're a fucking weirdo, Jeremy.
Just-
dial it
yeah.
down.
It takes somebody telling you, hey, that sucks, and not even like necessarily saying like, here's why, and you listening to them to stop doing that. Right.
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I like that these creators more or less did that. They kind of phased him out. They didn't there's not like a Ned episode,
Right.
where they just kind of like, they don't retcon it or anything. They just kind of stop, quietly put it aside. They put it in the poo closet, which is a good place to put it, I think.
Yes.
Sure.
This is also, I mentioned this last episode, but I want to bring up Ruins, the pretty crummy Warren Ellis comic that has a very similar premise to this. Where it's like, what if all the characters in the Marvel Universe were actually like shitty versions of themselves?
Yeah.
I think that his version of the Human Torch was very similar. His version of the Invisible Woman was blind because if light's not reflecting off your eyes, you can't see.
Oh, huh.
That's a pet, Warren Ellis, aren't superpowers bad kind of trope.
Yeah.
But there's no mention of this. I was half expecting to see some mention of that comic in the book because it is so similar. But so I don't know if there's any direct inspiration. But if you're
Like
in favor of the Fantastic Four sucking,
That and Planetary, right? Like this, like
Yeah.
There's a lot of like, what if the Fantastic Four were bad and Planetary with the, it's those similar kind of style powers, but not quite right. Even so much with the Invisible Woman, who has to have that suit or whatever for.
yeah, and they're
so-
evil in that one as well too. So like,
Super evil,
this feels
yeah.
very Warren Ellis in some ways,
Yeah.
and how it's deconstructionist. Yeah, and now it's time for a break. That's where we do a commercial break if we had them in the show.
But we don't, so we can
No,
go
we
back to the B plot, where the boys and Brock are watching the film strip that Ray's provided with them about the Goliath serum. So this is like Cold War propaganda narrated by Richard, talking about how this serum turns living beings into explosives. Like we see him dropping putting a drop of it on an ant. The ant crawls under a Jeep and blows up like a hand grenade. And they say, oh, this is proportional to what, to the host body size. So imagine blowing up Moscow by infecting an elephant with this in the Moscow circus, right?
Yeah.
And this is straight up just the plot from No One Lives Forever.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. This is kind of low on jokes, this little sequence, but it's really cute. As they're describing the symptoms, and Hank has all of them.
Yep.
And Brock's dawning horror. And then as they go through it, I love Dean's enthusiasm, him treating this like a world book.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like, stage 2, Brock stomping on that and him immediately blackpilling. He's like, you forgot one little thing? We're the Venture Brothers. It's like very, and then Brock being like, yeah, we don't know where your dad is, and this is a little bit out of his league, and him just screaming.
Yeah.
Incredibly good.
But I love when Dean thinks that everything is safe and he can torment Hank about it. Like Hank's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And Dean says, oh, we could kill you. That would stop the metabolic reaction. Lickety split.
Lickety split.
But Dean recognizing there is no safety net, because their dad isn't as great as they think he is very good, and how he goes from 60 to 0.
Yeah, it's real cute.
Yeah.
So they're going to go hunt down Richard Impossible, who might be able to help.
Yes.
I love the just the the random turn of events where Brock is like, I think I know a guy that can help, and I know where to find him. Like he just kind of instinctively, not instinctively, but he just, because he's so plugged into this weird secret agent world, he's like, yeah, I know where to go. He's in the Arctic. Let's just go over there.
Yeah.
It just happens that Rusty's there, and they underline it too. Rusty's like, "What, did you miss me?" Just a big coincidence, but that's okay because it's cartoon and we allow it.
Yep. So it is a small world of super science here. Back up at the base, Ned has carried Rusty over to a couch, and Sally comes in and explains what's going on. So she was she married to Richards?
Yes.
When this happened? Okay. It would be way darker if she ended up like marrying him specifically because he was trying to keep her a secret or whatever.
But that's incredibly Bluebeard like shit. Like,
yeah. But there was an accident with one of Impossible's machines. I love the way that she put this. He was trying to harness cosmic rays with gamma radiation, which
just Fantastic Four crossed with the Hulk.
Yeah.
And it causes this explosion. And she kind of explains what happens to everybody. Her brother and her cousin were in town. They were getting a tour of the building, so they all got caught in it, as opposed to space, which happened to the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Richard is listening to this and comes in and he does the shitty husband, like, are you bothering Dr. Venture? So he knows what's going on. He knows that Rusty knows.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's got his plot. He's gonna kill him. This is so weird. Like, this is throwing immense shade at the Fantasticar. In a way, I'm surprised about.
I really love this, dude. This entire scene, him just screaming, "I can't!" What?
Because it's real. Like, this is what the Fantasticar looks like. It's super dumb. It's like 4 cars that all the members of the Fantastic Four are in that are joined by struts for some reason. And him just giving the villain speech that Rusty can't hear is so perfect.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so good.
It's really good characterization too, because Richard Impossible really comes across like somebody who doesn't care if you're hearing what he's saying as long as he's speaking.
Yeah.
So he's like not checking for comprehension. He's got his eyes closed and just saying this. Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
There's like, this whole sequence is really, really good. Like, he starts, we had these simple rules, you made a move on my wife, but you can't go into a restricted area that I can't abide.
God, dude, that's so fucking good. Like, how much
so
of a
good.
dick is this dude?
Yeah.
I love my favorite dick moment is when Rusty goes, I won't tell anybody. And he goes, I know.
And then pulls away
and just leaves.
Stranding him.
Yeah, I know. It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But he's come up with a rationalization, like, just says, I know how this works. You get cabin fever, you're all cooped up. Rusty's like, oh, we've only been here for a couple of days. And he's like, no, that's what I'm going to tell them when they ask why you wandered out into the wilderness and died in the snow. And add insult to injury, this excellent suit that he is wearing cannot function below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. They're on the North Pole, so it flakes away, leaving him completely nude.
Yeah. Nude enough there his foreskin crumbles off later. So that's quite a lot of coldness and nudeness.
Oh, man.
Do you think that's canon? You think he just doesn't have a foreskin for the rest of the series? Like,
well, we do
does it
learn
ever
about some
mention
foreskin
again?
stuff. So we do learn about Hank and Dean's foreskin potential a little bit later. I assume this is he had one and now he doesn't. I think it probably is canon.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Oh. I need to go update my wiki of, which cartoon characters are
I gotta
circumcised.
go update my fan art.
Foreskinhaters.tumblr.com.
Sorry, pencils have erasers. Pete White voice.
Just get rid of it, fella.
Yeah. Just get rid of it, fella. Yeah. So the X1 with Hank progressing to stage 3 where he has a full beard.
Dude,
And
the
so
full
good.
beard just slays me.
They're on their way there, and he goes, Brock, I've been thinking a lot about it. If I have to die, I want you to be the one who kills me. No, and I love his initial, don't talk like that, Hank. And I'm just like, no, Brock, I'm serious. Okay. Instantly comes through. It says yes. And then Brock, how would you do it? You're asleep. quick jerk of the neck. Won't feel a thing. You've thought about this. Yes, I have. It's so good.
The delivery is amazing because it's like automatic. Like it's almost like somebody asked him name, rank, and serial number.
Yeah.
Oh man. But Hank is a little bit put off by this, but sometimes the bodyguard's got to know when to snap the neck. And so, this is the point where they just realized, okay, the episode needs to end. The plot lines collide with each other. They spot Rusty on the tundra. Rusty is walking along, completely frostbit, and he's hallucinating. Saying, "I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die." He hallucinates these steps in yellow snow. And he looks up and sees a hallucination of horny Sally talking about how she made him a sample.
Yeah, she goes, "Tee-hee, I made you another sample," about the urine he just stepped in, which is so fucking weird.
It's so bizarre, dude.
That is really, really weird.
Yeah.
And she says, "I know how to keep you warm," and her vulva glows beautifully to kind of take him in.
Yeah.
But it turns out it is a polar bear.
Mm-hmm. Brock comes in and makes quick work of this. This is Brock fulfilling a dream, because when he's in the Joy Can, he hallucinates about killing a polar bear. Here, though, he not only kills it, but he skins it and throws the bloody pelt onto Rusty.
Yep. Wear this, Doc. And this is where, he's like, "Hey, would you miss me?" "No, Hank's a bomb." So they go back in the lab where Richard is blocking off Sally, and she's kind of doing a rebellion. Brock shows up, and Mr. Impossible challenges him to a fight. Like, you tried to beat up a man made of living rubber. And kind of does fisticuffs motions. This is really great. And I love Brock's like, "Stop screwing around."
Yeah, you get dick or you delivery. Jerk or something like that.
Yeah.
He does not have time for it because it's time sensitive. We got Goliath serum here. And he asks like, "Hey, do you have an antidote?" And Professor Impossible's like, "Oh yeah, you can kill him." He pulls out a gun and points it. Rusty steps in front of him, and Professor Impossible's like, "Oh, like that would stop me from shooting. Like, oh, I'll kill you and your son."
I love
I've
that.
already killed you once today.
Yeah.
Like, I will definitely do it again.
I love so Billy comes out, and they try to rebel against him. He's like, "What? The kid's all hopped up on serum." I love hopped up on serum. So like, no, Billy has this inspirational speech like, "We are a think tank. We can do anything." So they Impossible goes to shoot him, but then Ned and Cody attack him and wrap him up into a knot.
Yeah.
Which happens to Mr. Fantastic every once in a while.
No,
as well, which has to be really, really undignified.
It's like the one way that you can take care of him, that and seeing how far you can stretch him,
Oh yeah, that hurts him as well.
Yeah.
I feel like putting him in some kind of jar would do good work as well.
Does he compress like that? Can he compress, or does he just stretch?
Oh yeah, he compresses into a little ball. He bounces around like that. In Ultimate Alliance, he turns into a ball and bounces around, and it's very funny and like weird. He's one of the silliest like A-list Marvel characters. Like,
yeah.
It's definitely one of the like from completely silly powers to oversized brain like ratios that we get in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Because all the other super geniuses are basically like Tech Bros and Xavier, and then you get this guy.
Just guys. and then you get Super Stretch Man.
Oh man. But with the professor all tied up like this, they can do a little science montage where they're going and using the machines and stuff, and they create the anti-serum, which Professor Impossible comes in after they inject him, and after they inject Hank and his beard falls out and the skin clears up. Professor Impossible comes in and says, "Hey, you morons invented ranch dressing." And he's holding up a vial full of orange liquid. Orange ranch dressing is somehow extremely vile to me.
There's I think it just this felt to me was a script
Me too.
animation disagreement.
Yeah.
Like the way he says it, he's like, "ranch dressing," but the people who animated it, who colored it, didn't get the note or whatever.
It kind of made me feel like they just ADR'd this scene a little bit. Like they came up with the ranch dressing joke a little bit later and went with it. And couldn't fix the animation.
And like they didn't invent ranch dressing. Ranch dressing is like
it was waiting there to be discovered.
Buttermilk and
Also, orange ranch dressing is just Thousand Island, and it's just as gross as you might imagine.
Awful.
The Catalina. They just invented some science stuff that didn't work. Like it looks like it worked. The beard falls out immediately and stuff.
That's so good.
Yeah. And Professor Impossible is like, well, obviously you didn't invent anything. The Goliath serum just doesn't work on humans. We didn't test him on humans. That was the point, you know, idiots. When he gets free, he says the reason he got free is because there's a reason why Ned's boots have Velcro instead of laces, honey, implying that Ned would not be good at tying knots.
Right.
Which is like a joke that I would like if Ned was just a Hulk.
Yeah.
Like if they never used the R slur, if he was just an idiot. Like I like jokes about idiots.
Yeah.
You know, like idiots are on the table. You can have dum-dums. Like it happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like imagine them saying it about Charlie Day and It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
Imagine them saying it about Ted Cruz.
Boom. Totally. Roasted. Bam. You can make jokes about people who are dumb. It's not off the table to have unintelligent characters.
Yeah.
You just don't have to take it that far. You know?
Yeah. It's regrettable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating to me that line, which I actually like, is like an oblique way of saying like, yeah, he wasn't good at tying knots. You know, a guy who's on fire and a guy who's not super smart, but they just, you know, they kind of spoil the well.
Yeah. Yeah. By making it related to a medical condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that after all of this, Sally is still like not reading the room correctly and is like, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to go with Dr.
I love this
Venture. And
speech. I'm with Doctor. You lose again, Richard. Like she kind of says it like the chief from Carmen Sandiego. Like, I'm with Dr. Venture now. It's like, I love this so much.
Well, just,
I'm every woman. It's all in me.
And like her being just a horrible judge of character when it comes to Rusty too. Like earlier she says like, "Oh, you're so different than him. You're so alive." And like to look at Rusty and not understand that he is completely dead inside is just a real character blindness moment that is extremely charming in this, where she's making this huge life decision that Rusty is not on board with.
No. This is a cute little ending here where she does that. The boys are way into it. Like I love that line where it's like, cool, I'm not going to explode anymore. Plus, free Invisible Mom. Free.
Hey, free dummy. Yeah.
Yeah. Free is doing so much work in that fucking sentence. And then it ending, you know, the wham ending is just like Brock being, you know, this is something they've done before.
Yeah.
You know, you wanna like we're gonna in the next episode we're gonna have Brock's wingman. You know, kind of their history and stuff. You know, so they're just going to leave. And I love that, you know, Professor Impossible just lets them leave.
Yeah.
You know, the arc with Professor Impossible as like the things happen with that character, he slides into, you know, oblivion is really great.
It's really good.
His life falls apart. Yeah.
Yep.
Then we get the post-credit sequence where Richard is examining the urine sample, which is not how you do that. There's like test strips and stuff like that. But he's looking through a microscope, you know, and Sally is in the background of the shot. She's sobbing like, "Oh, don't worry. You know, he was mean to you, blah, blah, blah. Everything will be fine." And he's like, "Oh, something is strange. It turns out Rusty is pregnant."
Yeah.
And because it's Sally's sample, Sally starts crying harder, like, "Oh my God, I'm in this miserable situation and I'm also having a kid."
Yes. Dark joke, rough chuckle. When you check for drugs, I don't think you check for pregnancy at the same time.
No.
I mean, you do if you're obsessed with piss, which obviously this dude is.
Yeah, this dude is.
This guy.
Yeah. But yeah, this is just a dark joke. This all works out well for Sally. Don't worry. She goes and raises Rocket with a good man.
Yes.
I really appreciate that they commit to him being such a bad husband that like his wife is like openly sobbing and he's still like doing science on the side. Like that's how
that's so Fantastic Four. Like Mr. Fantastic just looking at a microscope while Sue Storm cries.
Love it.
Gonna pull a Mr. Manhattan and you know I'm gonna be having sex with you in one room and then doing TV shows in the other.
Totally. Oh yeah, and that's basically the episode. Good episode, really good for like lore and introductions of characters.
Yeah, we're gonna get to spend a lot more time with Pete White and Billy Quizboy, two of my favorite characters in the show. Their relationship is hilarious to me. They also are the subject of one of my favorite lines in the show, where character describes them as slouching from PlayStation to Xbox. Oh man,
yeah.
Yeah, the stuff with the kids and Ray Spannon's corpse, or not his corpse at the time, but like his unconscious body. I think
inner
is-
forms.
yeah, is extremely funny to me. Just with the music, and here I think you mentioned the weird like got a weird like
Yeah.
Peanuts voices happening. It's just all very, very good.
Yep. Yeah. Good episode. Good up. I like these characters. I like what happens with them. I like this becoming way more Marvel Universe-y between this and the last episode.
Like right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like, obviously I like that because I like the Marvel Universe, but also I just like, if you're going to have the joke of your series be that you have straight men who are reacting to, a really outsized super science world, why not go all the way with it? It's not, don't just have them react to Johnny Quest shit because that's like smugglers. The smugglers of Pirate Cove, the pirates of Smuggler Cove, like that would get boring.
Yeah.
This by taking it, kind of making it more extreme, you can tell different kinds of stories, do different kinds of jokes.
Raise the stakes.
Yeah, which I really appreciate. So, Jeremy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for having me. This has been great. I love the
Yeah.
Venture Brothers, and my saddest story about the Venture Brothers is that right before I moved from Arizona back to Louisiana, I just gotten the vinyl of the soundtrack.
Oh.
And so we were kind of in a hurry, and we were stuffing stuff in various places, and it got put in the like back of an SUV that we were towing. And by the time we drove from Phoenix to Louisiana, it had melted into a very delightful but unfortunately unplayable state.
Yeah.
And I've just never been able to bring myself to buy it again for some reason. Like I think they're just readily available. I don't know what it's about. But I just think every time I think about it, I'm like, I didn't do the last one right, so I can't have a new one.
It's the heartbreak.
I already have it. Yeah. What do you have to plug? Tell us about your stuff, Jeremy.
If you like hunks, you can listen to Monster of the Week. It was a podcast that me and my friend Chris do about the TV show Supernatural. We just released a take of November Rain, like a cover of November Rain. Music was done by a friend of the show, Banshee Beat. And the music was Alice Does Karate. But it's all about we call it Winchester Pain instead of November Rain. So that's the kind of vibe that you're getting for with the show. We want to make people laugh. We want to make people cry over hunks. So monsteroftheweek.cool. And as Gary mentioned, Days of Future Cast to hear me and Gary talk about X-Men.
Yeah. We appreciate it. We'd love to have you back. And you mentioned Autumn. Autumn also friend of ours. And, we want to have Autumn on next season as well.
Yeah.
I don't think I mentioned Autumn.
You did earlier. You mentioned the vampire show.
Yeah.
Maybe it was in the green room, maybe possibly. But if not, I'm mentioning.
I don't know
Autumn.
her. I don't know her.
If not, I'm mentioning Autumn, who I adore, who's very funny.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to having her on for an episode as well.
Cool.
So until next time. Ratings, reviews, patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Yeah. All of that.
That's it, right?
Tell your friends.
All that. Tell your friends. We appreciate you for listening. And until next time, go
Go
Team
Team
Adventure.
Adventure.